The bloodied alley, the night was heavy with silence, broken only by the hum of neon signs flickering in the rain. The alien city looked alive, but not in a way that felt safe. Tall towers leaned over narrow streets, their glowing windows like watchful eyes. Between the buildings, dark alleys stretched like hungry mouths, waiting for someone foolish enough to step inside. A lone human walked through those streets. His name was Daniel. He had been stranded on this planet for months, trying to find a way back home. Every step he took reminded him that this place was not built for him. The air tasted metallic. The ground was slick with strange fluids, and shadows moved as if they had their own minds. As Daniel turned into a dim alley, he froze. A sound cut through the rain. A high-pitched cry, weak and terrified. It was not human. It was the sound of a child, but different, layered with an alien tone that shook him to the core. He stepped forward slowly, eyes searching the shadows. Under a broken lamp he saw them. 3 thugs stood over a small figure curled on the ground. The child was no taller than Daniel's waist, with pale blue skin glowing faintly in the dark. Its eyes were wide and glassy, filled with tears and terror. One thug raised a jagged blade. "Stay down, freak," the alien growled, its voice rough like gravel. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He could have walked away. He could have turned back. This wasn't his world, and these weren't his people. But his body moved before his mind could argue. His feet splashed into the puddles as he ran forward. "Hey!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the alley. The thugs turned, surprised. A human, weak, thin compared to them. Their grins widened with cruel amusement. "You picked the wrong alley, outsider," one sneered. Daniel didn't care. He grabbed a broken pipe lying against the wall and swung it with all his strength. The first hit landed across a thug's face, sending him stumbling back. The others roared in anger. The child gasped, staring at Daniel with disbelief. Then the blades came. The first stab struck his side. Pain exploded through his body, but Daniel pushed forward, shoving the thug away. The second blade cut across his arm, hot blood dripping fast. A third pierced his shoulder. He gritted his teeth and kept swinging, each move more desperate than the last. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose. Every strike of his pipe echoed in the narrow alley, a rhythm of survival. But for every blow he landed, another knife found his flesh. 4th stab, 5th stab, his vision blurred. His breath grew shallow, chest burning as if fire spread inside him. Still, he shielded the child, pushing it behind him. "Run," he gasped, but the child did not move. 6th stab tore across his back. 7th dug deep into his thigh, making his knee buckle. The 8th drove into his chest. His body convulsed, his knees hit the wet ground. The thugs laughed. "Pathetic human." They raised their blades again, but something in Daniel's eyes stopped them. He was still standing, even on his knees, his arms spread like a broken shield. He would not move aside. The child's glowing eyes widened. It looked at him as if he was something impossible, something it had never seen before. Tears streamed down its face. With the last of his strength, Daniel swung the pipe again, knocking one thug to the ground. His chest heaved, blood pouring from his wounds, but he did not stop. For a moment, his body felt lighter, almost free. He had no idea why he cared so much for a child he did not know. All he knew was that the thought of walking away was worse than dying here. The thugs, frustrated, finally backed away. "Not worth it," one spat, dragging the other 2 with him. "The kid won't last long anyway." They disappeared into the shadows, their laughter fading into the rain. Daniel dropped the pipe. His arms trembled, his vision fading to black. The alley spun around him. He collapsed into the puddles, blood mixing with rainwater. The child crawled to him, hands shaking as they touched his face. Its lips moved, whispering words in an alien tongue, soft and desperate. Strange warmth spread across his skin where the child touched him, almost like light seeping into his wounds. But Daniel was too far gone to notice. As darkness swallowed him, the last thing he saw were those glowing eyes staring at him with fear. And something else. Something that looked like guilt. Then the world went silent. Between life and death, Daniel drifted in a place that was not the alley anymore. It was neither dark nor light, but something in between. He felt as if he was floating in water, his body weightless, his wounds gone. Yet the pain still echoed inside him, like a memory carved into his skin. Whispers surrounded him. Voices that were not human, layered and strange, as if dozens of tongues spoke at once. He tried to open his eyes, but there was no body to control, no muscles to move. He was only a mind in the void, human. The voices called, some soft, some sharp. You should not be here. You bled for what is not yours. You crossed a line no outsider crosses. Daniel wanted to answer, but no words came. His thoughts scattered like smoke. Then, among the whispers, he heard something else, faint, trembling, desperate. A small voice. The voice of the child. Please save him. Please don't let him die, the void rippled. Heat pressed against him, and the floating weightlessness turned heavy. Pain returned all at once, sharp and unbearable. His chest felt crushed, his lungs burning for air. Suddenly there was light. He gasped, his eyes snapping open. He was lying on a smooth metallic bed inside a chamber glowing with blue light. Strange tubes ran across the ceiling, pulsing with liquid that shimmered like liquid fire. His body was covered with alien bandages, glowing faintly as if alive. Each stab wound was sealed with patches of light pulsing with every beat of his heart. Daniel groaned, trying to sit up. Pain chained him down. His breath came ragged, his chest still heavy. Beside him, the child sat quietly. Its large glowing eyes were fixed on him, wide with relief. When it saw him awake, the child whispered something in its alien tongue, then switched to broken words in human speech. You live. Daniel blinked, struggling to focus. His throat felt raw. Where am I? The child looked down as if afraid to answer. It clutched something in its small hands, a silver pendant carved with strange symbols. Its voice trembled. They come soon. Before Daniel could ask who, a sound echoed from the chamber door. Heavy boots, the clang of armored feet, a low hum of energy weapons powering up. Daniel's heart raced. He tried to push himself up, but his body betrayed him. His muscles shook and the glowing bandages tightened around his wounds, forcing him still. The door slid open. What entered was not a doctor, nor a simple guard. It was a soldier, taller than any human, clad in black and silver armor that gleamed like stone in firelight. Its helmet hid its face, but the glowing eyes of the mask stared directly at Daniel. Behind the first came more. Half a dozen elite alien soldiers marched in, each carrying weapons that hummed with lethal energy. Their presence filled the room with silence and authority. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. He thought this was it, the end. He was a human intruder who had dared to fight in their streets. No doubt these soldiers had come to finish what the thugs had started. But then something strange happened. The soldiers did not point their weapons at him. Instead, they turned to the child. As one, they bent to one knee, bowing their heads low. Daniel froze, confusion crashing over him. Why would elite warriors bow to a child? The child stood slowly, its trembling gone. It lifted the pendant high and the symbols glowed. Its voice, no longer soft and broken, echoed strong in the chamber. This human saved me. He gave his blood for me. The soldiers raised their heads. Their masked eyes turned to Daniel. For a long, heavy moment, no one spoke. Daniel felt exposed, weak, lying helpless under their gaze. Finally, the leader stepped forward, his voice deep like thunder. You carry 8 scars, human, and yet you live. Do you know what you have done? Daniel swallowed hard, his mouth dry. He forced his voice out, though it cracked. I saved a child. The soldier's head tilted slightly as if studying him. Not just a child, the leader said. The heir, the bloodline of the house of Sereth. The words meant nothing to Daniel, but the weight of them pressed into the air. The soldiers shifted, their armor clinking softly. The child, no, the heir, looked back at Daniel with something more than gratitude now. It was trust and something close to reverence. Daniel's mind spun. He had walked into an alley and saved a stranger. Now he was in the middle of something far greater. The leader raised his weapon and slammed it against the floor with a sharp crack. The council must see him, he declared. Then, without warning, 2 soldiers stepped forward, seizing Daniel's bed and locking it into a floating frame. He was too weak to resist as they prepared to move him. His heart pounded. He didn't know what council meant or what they planned to do to him. But deep inside, one thought burned clear. Whatever happened next, his life was no longer his own. The chamber doors closed behind them. The march of armored feet echoed like a drumbeat of fate, and Daniel realized this was only the beginning. Soldiers at the door. The hallway stretched long and endless, its walls glowing with strange veins of blue light. Daniel's bed floated forward, carried by invisible force, pushed silently by the elite soldiers who surrounded him. Their heavy boots thudded in rhythm, echoing like war drums through the narrow passage. He tried to move, tried to sit up, but the glowing bandages tightened against his skin, binding him in place. Every scar ached as if fire burned inside his body. The child, the alien heir, walked beside the floating bed, head held high though its small frame trembled. Daniel whispered, voice rough. "Where are you taking me?" The child looked at him, hesitated, then spoke softly. "To the council, they must see you." Daniel's stomach turned. Council? He had no idea what that meant, but judging by the armor and weapons of the soldiers, it was nothing small. The doors ahead hissed open, revealing a chamber vast and blinding. For a moment, Daniel thought he had been taken outside, because the ceiling looked like a star-filled sky. But as his eyes adjusted, he saw it was not real sky. It was crafted glass, domes filled with artificial constellations that glowed brighter than any he had seen on Earth. Rows of towering figures lined the chamber. Nobles, elders, leaders, whatever they were, their presence was overwhelming. Their robes shimmered with colors that shifted like liquid, and their eyes glowed with suspicion as they turned to the human. The soldiers wheeled Daniel's bed to the center of the chamber. Then, in one sharp motion, they all struck the floor with their weapons and knelt, their voices booming together. "The heir has returned." Gasps rippled through the room. Whispers rose like a storm. "With a human? He carries scars. No outsider should have survived that." Daniel's heart pounded. Dozens of alien eyes burned into him. He was weak, trapped, and now surrounded by powerful beings who clearly did not trust him. The child stepped forward, holding the silver pendant up for all to see. Its voice, steady now, rang clear across the chamber. "This human bled for me. He gave his life to shield mine. Without him, the bloodline of Sereth would end tonight." The council erupted in noise. Some voices praising, others condemning. A tall alien with horns curving from his head stood, his tone sharp with anger. "He is not one of us. His presence is danger. He should be cast into the pits." Another, cloaked in gold, raised a hand. "And yet he bears the scars of sacrifice. Who among us would have taken 8 blades for a child not their own?" The room fell silent for a moment. All eyes turned again to Daniel, who lay trembling, struggling to breathe. He wanted to speak, but his throat felt dry, his voice caught. Finally, he forced words out. "I didn't think, I just saw a child. I couldn't walk away." For a second, silence hung heavy. Then the chamber exploded again in divided cries. Some shouted honor, while others roared execution. The leader of the soldiers stepped forward, his armor catching the light. His deep voice cut through the chaos. "This human carries 8 wounds, yet still breathes. Perhaps the stars favor him, but law demands proof. Let the trial decide." Daniel's chest tightened. Trial. His weakened body shook as he looked at the child, but the heir said nothing. The silence was worse than any answer. The horned noble sneered, eyes burning into Daniel. "Yes. Let him face the trial of valor. If he survives, perhaps the gods themselves wish him among us. If he dies, then justice is served." A heavy gong sounded, vibrating through the chamber. Daniel felt the sound in his bones, each beat reminding him that his fate was no longer in his hands. The council murmured, nodding. The decision was sealed. The child rushed to his side, gripping his hand with small trembling fingers. Its glowing eyes filled with worry. I am sorry," it whispered. "They will not listen. Only the trial can decide." Daniel managed a weak smile, though blood still lingered on his lips. "What kind of trial?" The child lowered its gaze, voice breaking, one that no outsider has ever survived. Before Daniel could respond, 2 soldiers unlocked the floating bed from its frame. They lifted him effortlessly, chains of glowing light snapping around his wrists. He was no longer a patient. He was a prisoner walking toward judgment. The nobles watched with cold, curious stares as the soldiers dragged him away. The chamber doors slammed shut behind them, leaving only echoes of voices, whispers of awe, threats of doom, and one undeniable truth. Daniel had crossed into a world where one act of compassion had placed him against the will of an empire, and now the trial awaited. The alien court, the chamber of the council, was vast, almost endless. Pillars of crystal reached high into the dome, glowing faintly with inner light, and the walls pulsed with strange runes, alive like veins carrying energy through a body. Daniel had never seen such a place, not even in his wildest dreams. It felt less like a hall and more like a cathedral of stars. He was dragged into the center, chains of light binding his wrists, his footsteps weak and shaky. The alien soldiers surrounded him, their polished armor catching the glow of the crystal pillars. They moved with absolute silence, each step measured, each gesture controlled. Daniel felt like an insect trapped inside a cage of giants. Rows of nobles filled the court, their robes flowing with shimmering colors that shifted as they moved. Some had ridged foreheads, some had skin that gleamed like silver, and others had eyes that burned like embers. All of them turned toward the human, whispers passing between them like sparks in dry grass. A human. Still alive?
8 stabs, they said. No outsider should carry the heir's blessing. Daniel's throat felt tight.
Every whisper dug into him like another blade. He wanted to speak, to explain, but his voice seemed too small for this place. At the far end of the chamber stood a throne carved from living crystal. Upon it sat the High Counselor, tall and imposing, his cloak dark as night, decorated with lines of light that looked like constellations. His eyes glowed white, piercing and unreadable. The heir stepped forward, small but unshaken. It held up the silver pendant, its glow reflecting across the floor. The child's voice, though young, carried through the court with surprising strength. This human saved me. Without him I would be dead. He gave his blood so that I might live. The nobles stirred, some murmuring approval, others shaking their heads in disgust. A noble with golden skin rose from his seat. The human risked his life for the heir. Is this not the very definition of honor? But before agreement could spread, another stood. This one taller, with horns curving from his head like blades. His voice cut through the hall, sharp and bitter. He is an outsider, a fragile creature from a dying world. Do not be fooled by pity. His kind seeks only to spread weakness. His words were met with roars of agreement from his allies. Daniel clenched his fists against the glowing chains, his heart pounding. He wanted to shout back, to say he had no plan, no schemes, no reason other than saving a child. But fear held him still. The High Counselor raised his hand and the hall fell silent. His voice rumbled deep, echoing against the crystal walls. The council will hear the human. Daniel swallowed hard. His legs trembled as 2 soldiers pushed him forward. He looked up at the High Counselor, his mouth dry but forced his words out anyway. I didn't come here for power. I didn't even come here by choice. I saw a child being hurt, and I did what I would have done on my own world. I stood between the child and the blades. That's all. The hall was silent for a moment. Some nobles studied him with interest, others with disgust. The horned noble sneered, his voice dripping with venom. Pretty words. But words mean nothing here. Let him prove this honor he speaks of. Let the trial decide if he is worthy, or if his blood should stain our sands. A deep gong shook the chamber, its sound vibrating through the crystal. The nobles raised their voices, some chanting trial, while others argued for mercy. The noise clashed like thunder in a storm. The High Counselor raised his hand again. Slowly the sound died down, his white glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. The trial of valor has decided the fate of warriors for centuries. None escape it, not even kings. If the human is as noble as he claims, the trial will reveal it. If not, he paused, his voice turning cold, then his death will be swift and his blood will satisfy the law. The soldiers pulled Daniel back as the gong echoed again. The decision was final. The heir rushed forward, tears glimmering in its glowing eyes. It dropped to its knees before the council, voice breaking. Please, he already proved it. He gave everything. He cannot survive your trial. Gasps filled the room at the sight of the heir kneeling, but the High Counselor's face did not soften. His voice came like stone. Then let the stars judge him. The soldiers turned and began to drag Daniel out of the chamber. His heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to fight, but his body was weak, chained, broken. He looked at the heir one last time. The child's glowing eyes locked on his, filled with fear and guilt. The doors slammed shut behind him. As the soldiers marched him down another dark corridor, Daniel's mind raced. He had survived 8 stabs in an alley, but now he was being pushed into something far greater. A trial that had ended countless lives, a trial no outsider had ever faced. And as the echo of the gong faded from his ears, one thought gnawed at him. Maybe saving the child had not saved him at all. It had only handed him to a greater death. The trial of valor, the arena was carved into the heart of a massive canyon, its walls rising high like jagged teeth. Fires burned in metal braziers, their smoke curling into the night sky. Thousands of alien eyes watched from stone terraces, their voices buzzing like a restless storm. The trial of valor was no secret. It was a spectacle, a tradition where blood was shed to prove worth. Daniel stood in the center, chains of light gone now, but the glowing bandages still sealed his wounds. His body ached with every breath. He felt small, fragile, surrounded by an audience that wished to see him fall. The horned noble stood on a raised platform above the arena, his voice booming. "Human, you claim honor. You claim sacrifice. Now show it or be forgotten as dust," the crowd roared. Some cheered for blood. Others waited in silence, curious if the impossible might happen. Daniel looked around, heart racing. He whispered to himself, "This isn't my fight. I shouldn't be here." But then his eyes found the heir seated under guard near the council platform. The child's glowing eyes locked onto his, filled with hope and fear. And in that moment, Daniel understood. He was here. He had chosen this the moment he stepped into that alley. A deep gong rang. The ground beneath him shifted. Stone slabs cracked open, and the first trial began. From the darkness rose three beasts, towering creatures covered in thick scales, their jaws dripping with saliva that hissed as it hit the ground. Their eyes glowed red, their claws sharp enough to slice through stone. The crowd howled in excitement. Daniel's breath caught. He had no weapon, only his bare hands and a battered body. The beast circled, low and hungry. One lunged. Daniel rolled aside, pain screaming through his leg. Dust filled his lungs. He grabbed a broken spear shaft lying in the dirt, likely left from past trials. He raised it just in time to block the creature's strike. The wood snapped in two, but it saved his life for a heartbeat longer. The second beast charged. Daniel dove aside, scraping his arm across the stone. Blood smeared the ground. The crowd roared louder. The horned noble smirked, certain the human would fall within minutes, but Daniel refused. His mind raced. Strength would not save him. He had to be clever. He looked at the arena floor. Jagged rocks, cracks, and broken weapons scattered about. He spotted a loose stone large enough to use. When the third beast lunged, Daniel sidestepped at the last second and shoved the stone under its foot. The beast stumbled, crashing into the first, their massive bodies colliding with a thunderous boom. The crowd gasped. Daniel, gasping for air, snatched a broken blade from the dirt and rammed it into the beast's exposed throat. Hot blood sprayed across him as the creature collapsed. One down, two to go. The second beast snarled, rage burning in its red eyes. It leapt, claws extended. Daniel braced himself, but at the last moment, the first beast, still thrashing in pain, collided with it. Both tumbled into a crack in the arena floor. Daniel didn't waste time. He stumbled forward, using the broken blade like a lever, jamming it into the stone above them. The rock gave way, collapsing over the beasts. Dust and rubble swallowed their roars until silence remained. The arena shook. Daniel collapsed to one knee, coughing, his chest heaving. He was drenched in blood and dust, his body trembling. He had survived. But the gong rang again. The horned noble laughed, his voice cruel. "Beasts are nothing. Now let us see his heart." The ground shifted once more. From the opposite side of the arena, a figure emerged, tall, armored, carrying a spear that crackled with energy. It was not a monster. It was a warrior. The crowd went silent. This was no mindless beast. This was the second trial, combat against one of their own champions. Daniel's stomach twisted. He barely survived the beasts. How could he fight a trained warrior? The champion raised his spear, voice echoing through the arena. "Yield, human, and die with honor. Resist, and I will break you." Daniel tightened his grip on the broken blade, though it was barely more than scrap. His voice was weak but steady. "I'm not here to die. Not yet." The champion struck like lightning, the spear slicing the air. Daniel barely dodged, sparks grazing his skin. He stumbled, swung the broken blade, but it bounced uselessly off the champion's armor. The crowd jeered. Then Daniel remembered the beasts. He hadn't beaten them with strength. He had beaten them with wit. As the champion charged again, Daniel dove low, rolling toward the rubble of the collapsed beasts. He grabbed a shard of bone, jagged and sharp. He twisted, throwing it into the champion's exposed joint. The warrior roared, stumbling for a heartbeat. Daniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed the spear as it fell sideways, yanking it free. With a desperate shout, he thrust the weapon upward. Energy crackled, piercing the champion's chest plate. The warrior froze, eyes wide, before collapsing with a heavy thud. The arena went dead silent. Daniel stood shaking, blood dripping from his wounds, the spear trembling in his hands. He had done it. Against beasts. Against a warrior. He had survived. The silence broke into thunderous noise. Some roared in approval. Others screamed in anger. The air stood eyes wide. A small hand pressed against its chest in disbelief. The horned noble's face twisted with fury. His voice cut through the chaos. Enough tricks. He has survived beasts and blades, but he is still no one.
This human must not walk free.
The High Counselor raised his hand, silencing the arena. His glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. The trial is not yet over. Daniel's heart sank. His body burned, barely standing. And yet there was more to come. The gong rang a third time. The ground opened again, wider than before. Heat surged upward. From the depths rose a monstrous shadow, larger than the beasts, its eyes glowing like fire. The final test had begun. The rising threat. The arena floor shook as the final beast rose from the burning pit. It was massive, its body covered in molten scales that dripped with fire. Its breath came out in waves of smoke, and every step cracked the stone beneath it. The crowd gasped, many leaning forward, eager to see the human crushed at last. Daniel could barely stand. His wounds screamed with every movement, his arms heavy as iron. He still held the champion's spear, but his hands trembled, slick with blood. The monster roared, the sound rattling his bones. For a moment, Daniel thought this was the end. But then, through the haze, his eyes found the air in the stands. The child's glowing eyes met his, filled with desperation. Its small hands clenched the pendant tightly. And in that look, Daniel found something he thought he had lost, resolve. The beast lunged. Daniel dove aside, rolling across the cracked stones, barely avoiding the crushing weight of its claws. Heat seared his skin, the air thick with smoke. He gritted his teeth, whispering to himself, "Think, Daniel. Don't fight it head-on, think." The arena was filled with broken weapons, rubble, and fire. He scanned quickly, his mind racing. Then he saw it, a half-collapsed pillar above the pit, cracked and unstable. If he could lure the beast there, maybe? The beast swung its tail, sending Daniel flying across the dirt. His ribs screamed in pain. He coughed, blood spraying his lips, but forced himself back to his feet. With a roar that was more desperation than courage, he waved the spear, shouting at the monster. "Come on. You want me? Then take me!" The beast snarled and charged. Daniel turned, running toward the unstable pillar. His vision blurred, every step like dragging chains, but he didn't stop. At the last second, he dropped to the ground, sliding under the monster's swing. The beast's massive body slammed into the cracked pillar. The crowd gasped as the pillar cracked further, shards of crystal raining down. Daniel, summoning the last of his strength, drove the spear deep into the base of the stone. With a thunderous crack, the pillar collapsed. The weight of it came crashing down on the beast, crushing its molten skull beneath tons of stone. The ground shook. Fire and smoke burst upward, then silence. The crowd erupted into chaos. Some screamed in disbelief. Others cheered wildly. Daniel lay on the ground, his body trembling, his chest heaving. He had survived again against the impossible. But then, amid the noise, something strange happened. The High Counselor rose, ready to declare the trial over. But before he could speak, the horned noble raised his hand. His eyes glowed with fury, his voice slicing through the arena. "No, this is no victory. Do you not see? This human should be dead 100 times over. Yet he lives. Why? Because this was planned." Gasps filled the stands. The noble pointed directly at Daniel and then at the air. The beasts, the collapse, the champion's fall. It was all a trick. This human is no savior. He is part of the plot to destroy us. Do you not see the truth? The rival clan sent him. The arena buzzed with fear and confusion. Whispers turned into shouts. Daniel tried to push himself up, shaking his head. "That's not true. I don't even know who you are." But his voice was drowned out. The noble's allies shouted in agreement. "Yes, the assassination attempt failed, but now they use him as a pawn. He must die." The heir jumped to their feet, shouting with all the strength of their small voice.
"Lies! He saved me!"
"They tried to kill me in the streets, and he gave his life to protect mine." The crowd wavered, torn between fear and faith. The High Counselor slammed his staff against the crystal floor, the sound echoing like thunder.
"Enough!"
His glowing eyes scanned the arena, then fixed on Daniel. This trial has revealed more than courage. It has revealed division. Perhaps the human is pawn, perhaps not. But one truth stands clear: the shadows move against us. Daniel's head spun. Shadows, rival clans. His mind began to piece things together. The thugs in the alley, their attack wasn't random. Someone had sent them. Someone had wanted the heir dead. The heir looked up at him, their glowing eyes wide. They wanted me gone. They wanted war, and Daniel understood. The attempt on the child's life, the accusations, the trial, all of it was part of something bigger. A conspiracy that stretched beyond one alley. The horned noble snarled, but his eyes flickered with something Daniel recognized: fear. His accusations were too quick, too desperate. He wasn't protecting the Empire. He was hiding something. The High Counselor turned to the guards. Take the human and the heir to the inner sanctum. The council will uncover the truth. As soldiers moved to escort them, Daniel felt the weight of the arena's eyes. He had survived beasts and warriors, but now he faced something far more dangerous. Politics, betrayal, and a war brewing in the shadows. The heir walked beside him, clutching his hand. Its voice was soft but steady. You gave me your life, now I give you mine. Daniel looked down at the child. His body was broken, his future uncertain, but for the first time he felt he wasn't alone. And in the distance, far beyond the arena, war drums began to echo. The rising threat had only just begun. The warrior's choice. The inner sanctum was quiet compared to the roaring arena. Its walls were carved from crystal that glowed faintly, lighting the chamber in soft blue. Guards stood along the walls like statues, their armor gleaming under the light. Daniel sat on a stone bench, his chest wrapped in glowing bandages, every breath still heavy. The heir sat beside him, small fingers clutching his hand. Their glowing eyes were steady now, but fear lingered behind them. Outside the sanctum, the sound of drums rolled across the city, war drums deep and heavy carried by the wind. Daniel closed his eyes. His body was torn and broken, yet his mind refused to rest. He thought of Earth, of the life he had lost. He had wanted nothing more than to go home. But now here he was, caught in a storm not of his making. The High Counselor entered, his presence filling the room. The guards bowed as he approached, his glowing white eyes fixed on Daniel. You have survived what no outsider has ever faced, the counselor said. But survival is only the beginning. A greater choice stands before you. Daniel frowned, his voice rough. What choice? The counselor's cloak shimmered like starlight as he spoke. Leave now. We will send you back to your world, to your people. You will never see us again, or, his voice deepened, heavy with meaning. Stay. Stand with the heir. War is coming, and the child you saved is the key to our survival. If you remain, you will not be a bystander. You will be a warrior of this house. The words struck Daniel like thunder. Leave and return home, finally free from this nightmare. Or stay and fight in a war that wasn't his. The heir turned to him, their eyes glowing softly. If you go, I will understand, the child whispered. But if you stay, you will never stand alone again. Daniel's chest tightened. He thought of the alley, of 8 blades tearing into him. He thought of the crowd screaming for his blood, of the beasts and the champion he had fought. He thought of the heir kneeling before the council, begging for his life. On Earth, he had always been just another man, lost, forgotten. But here he had become something more. Before he could answer, the sanctum doors burst open. A soldier stumbled inside, armor scorched, his voice frantic. They're here. The rival clan attacks the city. Ships in the skies, soldiers at the gates. The counselor's eyes flared with light. He turned sharply to Daniel. The moment has come. Choose now. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. He looked at the heir, the child clutching his hand tighter. He could see the fear, but also trust. A trust he had not earned with words, but with blood. Slowly, Daniel rose to his feet. His body screamed in pain, but his voice was steady. I'm not leaving, he said. I stood for the child once, and I'll stand again. If war is coming, then I'll fight. The heir's eyes widened with relief. The counselor gave a single nod, as though he had expected nothing less. The guards moved quickly, strapping a set of light armor onto Daniel's broken body. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep him standing. They handed him a blade forged from crystal, humming with energy. It felt alive in his hands. The sanctum doors shook with the force of explosions outside. The counselor raised his staff high. To the gates, he thundered. The soldiers roared in answer, their voices shaking the chamber. They marched out together, Daniel at their side, the heir just behind him. The city burned under the shadow of enemy ships. Fire streaked across the skies and rival soldiers poured through the streets. The battle was chaos. Daniel fought like a man possessed, every scar fueling him. He dodged, struck, and bled, but he did not fall. The alien soldiers at his side began to shout his name, their respect growing with every enemy he cut down. The horned noble appeared on the battlefield, leading the rival forces. His voice bellowed above the clash of steel. "Seize the human! Kill the heir!" Daniel's blood boiled. With a roar, he charged. The noble met him with a blade like fire, their clash shaking the ground. Sparks flew as steel met crystal, each strike heavier than the last. The fight raged, but Daniel refused to back down. With a final desperate strike, he drove his blade into the noble's chest. The horned warrior staggered, his eyes wide with disbelief before collapsing in the dirt. The enemy lines faltered. The rival forces broke, retreating into the burning streets. The battle was won. For now. Daniel stood bloodied, his armor scorched, his body barely holding together. Around him, the alien soldiers saluted. The heir stepped forward, eyes glowing bright, voice clear. "Today he is no outsider. Today he is one of us." The crowd of soldiers roared. Daniel lowered his blade, his chest heaving, and for the first time since arriving on this world, he felt something new. Not fear, not weakness, but belonging. He looked at the heir, standing proud beside him. He had taken 8 stabs in a dirty alley for a child he didn't know. And now, that choice had brought him here, standing as a warrior saluted by an alien army. The drums of war still echoed in the distance. The enemy would return. But Daniel knew his choice was made. One human, scarred and broken, had become a legend among the stars.